sure that all of these presentations have generated all kinds of questions. I see people writing things down, and so you have a great panel here of expertise on different crops, some thought-provoking ideas from Klaus here. First question, yes.
Klaus, have you done a nutritional profile on the Fricka yet?
The question is, do we have a nutritional profile on the Fricka? I know there are some published. I think John Stas at Flower City Pasta has found something, and he's put together. I'm not quite sure if the information on the Middle Eastern Fricka is going to be exactly the same, because that would be a Durham-based. But I do suspect we could find something in Germany on the cream can, which would be much more like the Fricka that I'm making.
Has anyone done a study feeding emmer or the old wheats to people who have gluten allergies from the modern wheats?
Nobody's done a study, and people that I know of, but people, go ahead.
One of the research colleagues that I'm working with in Holland, and I have the paper here, has tested many modern wheats and many landrace. Landrace is another word for the traditional varieties, and actually has a lot of data that modern wheat breeding has contributed to gluten insensitivity. So,
Great.
Okay, I guess I'd want to be very cautious though, because there is a true gluten allergy, which people need to just stay completely away from anything that has it. But there's a lot of other
gluten stimulatory epitopes. It's
Is that because all the races similarly works same way? Like,
I'm sorry,
like Asians don't eat wheat regularly. Those people have same problem or same reaction?
I can only show you this one paper. I'm not making any global statements, just pointing out that there has been one study.
Of
That is, it was in Holland.
Holland, okay.
Great, and Ellie has the paper, so you have it with you. Great, so we can talk to her afterwards. Are there other questions? You guys?
Let's identify. Why don't you get up, Ellie, just so everyone knows who you are. We really owe a lot to Ellie for having gone actually on site and collecting these things that have been really rare.
Okay, are there other questions? Yes, Carol.
So would you say the biggest obstacle for hops development is harvest equipment? I mean, now you got to learn what ones grow, but is that really what's holding back?
Harvest is definitely the biggest concern right now, just because the amount of labor they get to put into something, it just makes it uneconomical. But disease would be the other biggest constraint, downy mildew predominantly.
What about winter growing season?
That's not a problem. Hops respond to daylight, and so they'll grow. This is so. Can I not use it?
You can repeat the question first, and that way everybody can. And maybe hold it away from you.
Okay.
A little bit.
Sorry, the question was about length of growing season, and hops respond to day length. So they'll grow as high as they'll grow right up until the solstice, and then they'll stop their vertical growth and devote their energy towards sidearm development and cones. So out in the Pacific Northwest, where their frost is a little bit, their last frost is a little bit earlier, they'll grow 25, 30 feet, whereas here they'll grow 20, 25 feet, but still more than sufficient.
Yes, sir.
I know a little about hops, except for the final product that I enjoy. But how many seasons do you? Is it a single season? Do you grow the rhizomes you replant, how many seasons do you get out of it?
They're a perennial below ground, and so you cut them back and then they come back. And out west, they often will have a yard that goes for about 10 years, and then the market will change enough so that they often just tear them up. But there's hops growing in the woods of Vermont that have been growing there since 1840, so they grow 160 years.
They don't lose vigor.
There's some arguments about that. So some of the old varieties like Tettnang and Saz are from Europe from the 900s or so. So those varieties don't yield very well, and there's some arguments that say that they've just lost figure from being rhizomally reproduced so many times. But it's just an argument. I don't know how much scientific founding there is in that.
You showed,
Oh, go ahead.
you showed the baler that you guys are working on. Is that for baling the hops, or is that for baling the vegetative matter and stuff? And then if it's for the vegetative matter, how is it used?
The question is about the baler. The baler is for the cones. We harvested about 400 pounds of loose cones once they were dried. It filled up like 4 or 5 freezers. You know, it's just, if you're going to get 2,000 pounds in an acre, imagine how many freezers you need, right? And it's because they're swollen or loose. And so the point of the baler is to pack the cones down to reduce the amount of oxygen and the oxidation that happens from that. And so you just load it in. There's a YouTube video about it, and which you can see on our website, and it just bales the cones up.
So what happened, you said you have to cut the vegetative matter back at the end of the season. What happens to that matter?
It's composted frequently. Usually happens to it.
Yes.
Well, when you mentioned the harvest equipment, if there's anyone here who knows more, please jump in. I thought a farm near Syracuse, New York, got a grant to design a hop harvesting equipment. Have you heard of that?
Yep. The question was about small-scale harvest equipment for hops.
Oh.
And there's a farm, Foothill Hops Farm in Munnsville, New York. They've designed a harvester themselves. There's another farm in Maryland that's designed one themselves. We're designing one, and the blueprints from which was in consult with Mary and Kate Fisher. And those blueprints will be made available once we finalize them, so that people can either build their own, modify them as they see fit, and so on. And that's how we're hoping to overcome the harvest barrier.
Peterson Farms has a hop harvester that they bought in Germany, used one.
I think the goal, and one of the goals of the UVM hop harvester was for it to be mobile, so that in the investment of constructing the harvester could be spread across maybe many farms, which is different than the other farms harvesters at this point are not mobile. Ours is horizontal instead of vertical. Larry and Kate's is vertical, really difficult to move when it's, I don't know, it's like 16 feet tall. You can't bring that down the road. So anyway, that was part of it. Yes, sir.
My question's in regards to rice. Are you familiar with any sort of intercropping or multi-cropping throughout the year integrated with rice?
Okay. For the rice, you use rice paddy. It's a kind of set infrastructure. Within that, usually you don't do that. But you can intercrop or kind of combining with duckling, like Eric did start experiment. So you put the early stage, put in duckling after the weeder. They eat all the wheat supports. And then before the panicle comes out, you remove from the paddy and probably save for the later, like Christmas duckling. At that time you can sell the good side. Other things like Chinese does with fish. They start eating fish like carp type of species, put in the early stage and harvest both at the end. So you can get animal protein and the vegetable protein. Other way that I know the Japanese does all the using those, if it's small, around the paddy, you plant soybeans. And soybeans grow very well because paddies are wet, and the bank is always sitting toward the irrigation is perfect all the time. It's not too wet, but perfect wetness. At the end, you will harvest the soybeans, and you will probably make a tofu or soybean paste along with the next harvest. That's about I know. You don't intercrop or how you say that every year change the crop. Rotation is not required. It doesn't diminish any production. you keep growing at the same place if you use water. And if you don't use water, you have to treat it without the grain. You have to rotate.
Ellie?
Of the 5 varieties that you recommended as being early maturing,
Yeah.
where do you recommend that we get them? 3 are available on Grin, I just checked, but 2 are not.
Which one? Which one you didn't get?
The ones that are not on Grin are Kitake and Yukikari.
Yukihikari and Kitake is, I think, small grain have it, but maybe temporarily run out of seed. I do not think that's the reason, but they should have.
So I'll check the spelling with
Yeah.
you after. And anyone else that wants to get the seeds to grow them, maybe we can meet after.
The good thing is United States or USDA have a good size, almost comprehensive gene bank for the rice. And you can get any varieties if they have. Sometimes they run out. But if you wait a couple of years, most of the cases they renew and available. And get from the curator is Harold somebody. He's very nice, helpful. And if you ask the question, where you are, what kind of things you are looking for, he will choose for you.
Great.
And it comes just a small packet, 100, 200 seed. And try experiment and familiar with the rice. If you successfully go one season, you will have thousands of seeds.
I wanted to know what system you're using for fertility for your rice.
I use cheap dried manure after transplanting, spread from the spread for the surface.
Is that wet while the paddy's dry or while it's wet?
Paddy is the field flattened. A bit careful with that method. You need to plant as deep as possible. The seedling is still small, but if you make it too shallow, if you spread as soon as they, how you go into the water and available too much at once. So as deep as possible, say 5 inch, that's most reasonable or least trouble. Then if it all depends on your rice paddy condition too. If you hold well, it should last 4 days to a week, gradually go calculate. And but if your paddy is very, say, gravelly, like basket-like, then just 1 day before soaking, it is you are losing quite nutrient, most likely. So it's not simple answer for that. Oh, another general approach is, of course, you can prepare the compost or manure spread before any transplant or just regular cultivation, and you cooperate with those. That may be the safer for the paddy which doesn't hold water.
Other questions?
Do you till your paddy?
What?
Brian said this.
Do you till your?
Yeah. The initial stage of several years I till, and after that gradually I become lazy enough to skip that. And last year I didn't do any tilling.
No.
And that means that soil is quite not hard, but firm enough to do anything you want. Even I don't need to drain completely anymore, but I can walk. So I just partially drain and just shallow water, I can harvest. So that's one way. But that's a big trouble you have to expect, the weed. And if you remember the picture of pair of duck, wild duck, sitting on the bank, that pair actually did weeded the center part of the paddy very nicely because it holds the best of our 3 paddy. And they came in early spring, and because the algae is growing, and duckling is always growing, not duckling, duckweed, and they are eating those along with the weed. And that paddy, central paddy, I didn't do anything actually this year, this past season. But of course, if they come when you harvesting, they reach grain.
Ellie?
I wanted to tell people there are more than me, Julie also has done a lot of work, and maybe other people in other countries, that the heritage wheats that I found, class has found, Julie will talk, are really high performing and superior and full of soul in our organic fields, are very threatened, many of them on the verge of extinction. What I found working in the Mideast and in Europe is that what we're facing with the inundation of the modern high-yielding Green Revolution varieties, they also have. And individual farmers put the seeds in my hand, gave them to me, I gave them to Klaas. And so Klaas and I have talked a lot about creating a grain farmers cooperative, and we've actually established that in Europe for cereal biodiversity. So if anyone wants to join in the work of bringing these beautiful old varieties back, we invite you to talk with us and be part of this connection to the real farmers. Maybe donate a certain profit if we start commercializing.
Great, thanks, Ellie.
Related to those genetic resource, for the rice, unfortunately this climate, there was, say if you go back 300 years, there was no rice, nowhere on the earth. No one grew any rice. Between all the variety we could grow here now is a more modern breeding program, which is very limited. But now, with DNA's the contribution to add more wild gene, we could cooperate. And this future will be both way, bright and be careful, but it is going to have more choice of rice. Right now, we have a Japanese short grain, Japanese type. But soon, we are planning to, we actually started breeding program with the Cornell University of aromatic short grain.
Great.
It will hopefully, say, 5 or 6 years from now, the first trial can be started. And of course, arborio or other type, all can be worked out.
Melissa, do you have a question?
I don't have a question. I have some information to share. I'm Elizabeth Henderson, and I had the surprising experience the past 2 years of touring around the island of Taiwan. I was invited to speak about community-supported agriculture, but on the tour this year, I spent 10 days together with an organic rice breeder from Thailand, who he heard my speech over and over again. I heard his speech over and over again. So if anybody is interested in hearing the details of how this man was able to double the yields of the organic rice growers in his area of Thailand, I would be happy to share that with you. Very, very interesting. And he also doesn't use either compost or manure. He collects the soil from the forest nearest the field and creates a kind of a slurry that he spreads on the field to get the microorganisms working.
Great, thank you. Lots of great information.
Another rice question. How does our wild rice that grows around here relate to cultivated?
Okay, so first things you have to understand, wild rice we call, it's a different genus actually, and it's not closely related. You cannot hybrid those two species. But I've experimented with sativa, it's a temperate rice from the most likely somewhere southeast China, the original. And around here, from a long history, we harvest those so-called wild rice. And that's, there should be some cultivation done in the Midwest, I think. But I don't know that around here.
There's some here too.
Yeah.
It's an aquatic oat,
Yeah.
actually.
Oh, really?
It's very closely related to oats.
It looks like more like a basmati, like very thin and long and dark brown outside. Very similar to those rice itself, but it's a grass farm, it's a some relation there.
It does kind of look like an oat.
I think it's smoked or treated
I'm
with
not
heat
sure how
after
it's
it's harvested.
treated. Yeah.
And then you can just thresh it.
Okay.
Interesting. All right, we have time for maybe just one or two more questions. Does anyone have a burning question they'd like to ask any of our speakers today? Hannah, do you have a question?
I do not.
You don't? Look on your face, like I do. But, well, I have one question. I'm interested in how much does it cost to build or construct a rice paddy or a hop yard? They seem maybe somewhat kind of labor intensive, a very different type of infrastructure and whatnot. So.
It all depends on your location.
Uh-huh.
The topography is very important. If it's steep, it's small paddy, it costs more.
Right.
If it's like Eric's place, it's flat,
Very flat.
it just can do the same cost, but 10 times, 100 times bigger. And of course, there's no contractor who can handle this well.
Mm-hmm.
That we have to consider. If we have to say correct equipment with good experienced person to handle, it will be not that simple. But also, if this can be combined like a rice paddy system, which is pond and the rice paddy itself and the ditch, it goes back to the original stream well. If this considered as a part of the kind of mitigation for the wetland, and that if that everyone community people understand and agree, that would be the and the help come from the taxpayers' money to start. And the farmer will maintain and actually manage the water flow along with those Navy, not the Army Corps program. And it will be some more education is needed.
Yes.
I have a quick question about this. What if we have sandy soil?
It is very hard.
Yes.
And it depends on how sandy. The trick, say if you see that, say rice is grown almost half the population of world is eating rice, means that there is a not ideal land they're growing, like you said, gradually. Their trick is annually early spring. They till with water in it, whether by oxen or water oxen. And then that way you can see the finer particle fill the all the space and create temporary hard pan. And it is temporary in better holding. And that way every year they have to keep doing, redoing, but by doing that you can hold the water. And that's the only things, but I know many actually farmers in the world does that. Because rice, you don't find such an ideal spot so easily.
Great. Rosie, did you want to answer how much it costs to construct a yard?
Yes, we've done, Vermont Agency of Agriculture and the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources did an economic analysis of.
Maybe give her the microphone, because I doubt that.
Sorry. The Vermont Agency of Agriculture and the Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources funded a study to do like an economic analysis of growing hops. And then we also tracked our costs building our yard, and it's about $10,000 an acre to build a hop yard. I mean, the costs can be reduced if you do most of the labor yourself, if you harvest poles from your own land, and that sort of thing. But like trellis, the trellis wires are very expensive, and rhizomes to plant your yard are also really expensive. But we are saving about $10,000 an acre. Is a good estimate.
Great, and I think we have 1 minute. 1 minute. Anyone? Anyone? All right, so we'll spend 1 minute clapping and cheering